Good morning, everybody, and thanks for joining our sixth Grolens webinar. We're super excited to have you, and we're really going to get into some important information today that can help, change the course of your business. Um, these webinars are typically short. We understand you guys are busy and have a lot going on, so only be expecting a 15 to 20-minute webinar, and then we'll end off with some questions. Excited to hear from you guys in the field. So let's just go ahead and hop into it. So Metrc Oklahoma. So recently, a lot of you have gotten a notification announcing that the state of Oklahoma selected Metrc to bring more tracking into the state cannabis program, and I'm going to just hop into it. So today I'm just going to kind of get into a little bit of intro on who we are, who I am myself, as well as what is Metrc, what to expect, and most importantly, how to prepare. So ultimately, the goal of these webinars is to promote knowledge sharing in the grow community and amongst cannabis entrepreneurs, as well as best practices. We understand it's really easy to kind of get in your silo and focus on your business, which is important, but we also think it's important to share knowledge amongst each other to move the industry as a whole forward as we grow our own individual businesses. So just a quick intro on myself. I've been Metrc certified for almost 3 years now. Here in the California market is where we started. We've consulted with over, several hundred cultivation facilities. We're unique in the sense that we're focused on cultivation facilities specifically. And we also have a background in cultivation. I myself also one of the co-founders of Grolens, just to kind of give more context about who we are and where we're coming from as we hop into this Metrc information. We're providing all of the accounts based on our experiences and hands-on being in the field working with the Metrc system. However, things are subject to change based on your legislation and municipalities. So these things are going to be really accurate, but I just want to make sure we understand that these things can change based on your specific municipality or if legislation changes. Who is Grolens? So Grolens is an all-in-one software for commercial cannabis growers. So there's really three things we focus on. One, your operation. So ensuring your production calendar is on point. You have all those features available in the app. Two, plant health. So we provide a system to track the day-to-day of your plants. We also provide integrations to help you monitor the environment those plants are in. And last but definitely not least is compliance. So that's where we're going to focus on today. And compliance comes with integrations with state systems like Metrc. So operations, plant health, and compliance are the three pillars that we found ourselves on. Without these three pillars, the table will not stand in your growth facility. You got to have your operational efficiency, you got to have healthy plants, and you got to be compliant. So those are the three things we focus on with our all-in-one software. So to kind of hop into it, let's just get straight right to it. What is Metrc? So Metrc is state mandated seed to sale tracking. This is a government system that the government has brought on, and it essentially stands for marijuana enforcement, tracking, reporting, and compliance. Really not put in place to help you thrive as a business or be friends with you. Essentially, it's here for marijuana enforcement, tracking, reporting, and compliance. Those three, four purposes. When we kind of get into the objectives, there's really two main things that they narrow it down to. One, Metrc is put in place to prevent any diversion to the illicit market. So they want to make sure everything runs through legitimate means. which is positive for the industry. And the second is to identify taxable events. So this is taken directly from the Metrc website and the correspondence we've gotten from them. It doesn't say in here anywhere to help you increase your pounds per light. It doesn't say to help you get higher potent, product. These are the two purposes: to prevent any diversion to the illicit market and identify taxable events. So, essentially it's here to, help the state keep better oversight over the industry, and ensure tax collection. So nothing here is really slated to benefit your business. However, we do see how we can kind of flip these things that are not to prevent here to help your business thrive, for the better. So what to expect? So when you get into Metrc, the first thing to expect is the Metrc tag. So this is a generic Metrc tag, pulled from their documentation. It's going to have A, the license number, B, your facility name, C, the applicable identifier, whether it's retail or cultivation, your tag order number, and your tag number. So this barcode here is a unique identifier. These tags are going to be generated by the state and shipped to you. So this is important. You are not going to have the ability to create these tags. These tags will have to be ordered and shipped to you by the state. One other thing that's extremely important to point out: this tag doesn't have any information pertaining to your genetic or strain, that might be important to your facility. So you do have the ability to attach additional labeling to these tags, to kind of help you better stay organized. But the standard out of the box tags is only going to have these 5 pieces of information. So a little more getting into that Metrc tag. Once you get those Metrc tags, they will have to stay with your product throughout all the phases of the process. So just to kind of get into it a little deeper, on the grow side, you're going to need a tag for immature and mature plants. So with immature plants, you typically don't have to assign a tag to each plant. You only have to assign a tag to a lot of 100 plants, is the typical batch size. So effectively, you would have one tag to know that you've cut 100 clones or you popped 100 seeds. And that's when they're immature. Once we get into mature, which is basically defined by flowering plants on a 12-12-hour light cycle, at that point or before, each plant will need to get an individual tag with an individual barcode ID. So it goes from having a tag for every batch of 100 plants to having a tag for each individual plant. Each individual plant will get a tag, as opposed to every tag per 100 plants on the immature side, is because typically immature plants are not big enough to hold a tag when they're in a clone phase, and there's a high destroy rate. So typically not every clone survives and makes it to mature. So this is a precautionary mechanism to ensure you don't waste a lot of tags. So just to kind of go back, when your plants are immature, you're going to have a tag per 100 plants. And once you move those plants over into flowering, you're going to have to tag every plant with a unique barcode. This kind of transitions to the next phase of the process, which is harvesting. So typically there's going to need to be a weight associated with each of those individual barcodes. So again, this is based on your state's municipality, but this is how Metrc functions. They're going to make you tag each immature lot of 100 plants with one tag. And then once your plants become mature, each plant will get a tag. And then when those plants are harvested, they will want a harvest weight associated with each of those individual plant IDs. So it is kind of a larger undertaking that is coming into play. Weighing each individual plant is not typically a practice that was done in commercial cultivation until compliance came into the picture within the last 4 years or so. So after your plants are harvested and a weight is associated with each individual plant tag, then the package tag comes into play. So the package tag is assigned to finished inventory before moving it between a new phase of the supply chain. That phase of the supply chain in your state in particular will be a retailer. However, it is a chance that that can change to a distributor. So before you move your plants to the next phase in the supply chain, you're going to have to take that harvested weight that's associated with the individual plant ID, put a package tag on it, and move it through the next phase of the growth process. So I understand I kind of unpacked a lot just in that small period of time. So I did want to just pause to see if there was any questions. And there is a Q&A box in this Zoom. So if you want to just type in any questions now, I'll go ahead and do my best to get to those. Do a quick pause. I had a question come in, is any idea of the cost of the tags? So this also will depend on how the state sets it up. Typically, some states will bundle the cost of the tags in your licensing fees. If they do not do that, then you will be looking at a cost per tag. It's typically, we're talking about cents on the dollar. It's nothing typically too overwhelming based on the size of your facility, but there is cost of the tags that's either bundled into your licensing fees, or they will charge you a cents rate on those tags. We estimate, 10 cents per tag. However, there is scenarios where it's included. So the next question I see here, what does a Metrc charge for individual tags? We got to that one. So wet or dry weight on harvest. So in the markets that we've experienced, it's been a wet weight. So when you're harvesting those plants, you're weighing them wet. And then when you're packaging for resale, you're packaging the dry weight. So the system is kind of paying attention to moisture losses, what you package, but it's typically a wet weight figure that's captured during harvest, because the plants are typically wet, are always wet when they're harvested, and that weight is typically required to be done immediately after you harvest it. So we're talking about a wet weight figure. So I have another question here on harvest. Each plant, wet, wet, or dry. We got to that one. Yes, and the next question is, are tags requested by cultivators to stage through Metrc? So yes, you are responsible for requesting those tags and ordering those tags. So that is, let's see, I'll get a few more questions in. Will the package tag be issued by the state, or will this be an item each facility can make? So when you're talking about Metrc, you kind of have to forget about creating your own tags. Only if you want to generate tags to display information that the Metrc tags does not. So just to kind of thoroughly answer your question here, this is the only information that the Metrc tags displays. Typically, growers like to see their strain name. So in a software like the one we provide, you can generate a tag that provides that details and actually stick it on the back of this because it's typically blank. However, when you're talking about metric tags and these state tags, they have to come from the state, A, because they're monitoring how many tags they send you, and B, it kind of gives them additional oversight and regulatory power by issuing how many tags you can have and how many plants you can track at a given moment. The next question was hang full plants. Typically plants, depending on your drying area, if you can accommodate hanging full plants, you want to, it makes things a lot easier and allows for better tracking through the process. We have seen facilities that do not have the space and have to break their plants down, which is understandable. However, by hanging full plants, you will need, it does give you enhanced tracking capability. I have a question that says, is there a formula applied to shrinkage? So the formula is typically calculated as you go along. So as you capture wet weight and input dry weight figure, there will be a factor that's calculated based on how much wet weight you're weighing to dry weight you package, and the percentages typically come about. We know that growing years, moisture loss can be, around 80% in many cases. So it's calculated as you go along. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the questions there, and we'll kind of get back into it, and definitely we'll return to some more questions. So in this what to expect the metric tag that stays with the plant or biomass through every stage of the process. On the grow side, you have one tag for a batch of 100 plants typically. And then when those plants are mature, you have a tag for each individual plant. Once you harvest those IDs, a weight will be associated with each of those individual tags. And once you're ready to sell, a package tag will be assigned to that inventory before you move it between licenses. So what to expect continue? One thing that you're going to have to expect, increase in labor hours and data entry and plant tagging. So it's definitely going to increase overhead and man hours. We know these facilities are already very costly to set up and costly to run. So I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but this is not a program that is going to help you lower your cost. It's going to actually increase your cost on labor. Some facilities have reported an additional average of 4+ hours a day in work. This is completely dependent on the size of your facility and how many plants you're tracking, but do expect to increase labor hours, which unfortunately comes with heightened overhead. So it's no other way I can sugarcoat this. It's going to increase labor hours and staff hours in the facility and provide additional workload. So just on the kind of flip it and get on the brighter side of things, we're kind of going to get into how to prepare for these things. So ultimately, you want to have your standard operating procedures for your facility intact. So it's equivalent to like, hey, you spent X amount of dollars, many cases, 6 figures, 7 figures, high 5 figures to set up these facilities. You're going to want to have a manual and a way to track that, if not already. So in these standard operating procedures, you want to have the overall high level breakdown of how the facility is going to operate. So you want to get with the owner of the facility, the head grower of the facility, the compliance manager, all these people. Let's bring them together and put together your standard operating procedures at a high level that kind of looks at the whole year, looks at the months, and then you want to get into day-to-day operations. So we are happy to, we've seen these things before. We're happy to give advice. Um, Typically on a day-to-day, you have your head grower walking the facility, getting a lowdown of the tasks that need to be done and rolling out those tasks to the staff. Um, the good news with these operations is you're doing the same things over and over, so it also does allow you to plan very far ahead and kind of really have things dialed in. We understand things don't go as planned in many cases, so this can all be factored into your standard operating procedures. Just to kind of give you an example of how expansive these standard operating procedures can be, um, this is kind of a table of contents for a real life standard operating procedure. You can see it has the central information broken down, the layout of the facility, the organization, who's the staff that's working for this facility, the working conditions, and most importantly, the operating procedures, which goes down through everything from the production process to the clone process, transplanting, vegetative, insect management, IPM, topping, spraying, the whole nine. You want to map it out. You can never be too detailed in these scenarios. And it's going to come in handy if you have a procedure in place that you can fall back on when you're in the field, when you're tired, to kind of look at. It even have a section on metric and software such as Grolens. So this is kind of a brief example to give you what you're looking at when you're setting up a standard operating procedure. This is actually 70 pages, so it's kind of expansive, but putting in the work on the front end will save you less headache and reduce stress on the back end, because that's what we're about. Stress-free growing, minimize any unnecessary workload. So you want to have some type of standard operating procedure in place. The second thing is place a sufficient record keeping system in place. So I know a lot of you guys are already doing OMA reporting. You're already using spreadsheets or whatever it may be. Having a sufficient record keeping system in place is extremely important. We've even been seeing people use pen and paper, but have something that's organized and captures your inventory, immature, mature plants, product, finished product, harvested waste, whether that's wet or dry, waste, and sales. So having a system in place that aggregates this, organizes for you, is going to be pertinent to the success and the preparation as metric comes into play in your state. Another thing to understand is your harvest frequency and your plants per harvest. So again, luckily we're doing these things over and over. So the best we can get in a rhythm, the better. The better we can understand our genetics, how many weeks they're flowering, how many weeks you're vegging, and really getting all of these things dialed in so you're just repeating the same process, and recording that is important. A third way to prepare is to get a management system in place. So that's what essentially Grolens is. We're a management system that integrates with metrics seamlessly. We automatically organize your plants by strain, phase, zone. We allow you to quickly generate reports. Ultimately, the main value is this. We talked about how this will help. This metric will increase labor costs. So Grolens, and I'm sorry to use those two so interchangeably, Grolens is a management software that's meant to reduce the time spent on otherwise manual data entry. And this is how we implement features like barcode scanning that make it easy to record records in real time while you're in the field. So imagine your staff is out there, he can scan that metric barcode and enter in data in real time. Entering in data in real time when you can is extremely important. It improves the accuracy of the data in your facility. The second thing, in addition to the barcode scanning capabilities that come standard with our mobile app that don't require any additional scanners, is going to be really key. The second thing is Bluetooth scale integration. We've seen it reduce the time spent on weighing plants by upwards of 83%. So imagine a world where you're scanning a barcode, you're putting the plant on that scale, you're hitting one button and it automatically transmits that data into digital form, organized, and it's associated with that plant ID. Your other choice is looking at that plant ID, putting on a scale, keying in or writing 3 to 5 digits, and then transferring all those digits in at another time. So effectively, a 4 to 5 step process is being reduced to 2 steps with a Bluetooth scale integration. So these are the 2 key ways that we allow you to reduce the time spent that will come with compliance reporting. That is almost unavoidable. So we're kind of want to combat the additional overhead and labor that's going to come with compliance, because we believe compliance reporting should not slow down your workflow. We want you guys to continue to thrive, maximize your harvest per year, and get the most out of your facilities. So just to kind of go back, this is an operator currently on our system. They say a lot of stress was taken away. It allows me to do my job as a CEO of my company. I can rest easy knowing I'm compliant. Knowing Grolens there is a huge security. So this is Brian Kelly. He's a farmer in Northern California. So ultimately, you're really effectively getting a team of professionals that can assist you with your efforts of becoming, adapting to this new world of compliance reporting in this new market. So as I said, as I promised, this webinar was not very long. I'm going to take some more questions. Yeah, I'm gonna just take a minute to take some more questions, and then I'll go over how to get in touch. So I see here how much is Metrc. Metrc is a system that it's a state system, so it's not typically a cost associated with Metrc because it is taken on by the state. The state is paying Metrc to implement this, so it's typically no cost to the farmer. However, you can kind of look at state or government. Government has things that they pay for. There's state housing, there's state, other state programs that's provided by the state, but, in many cases is not in the best interest or optimized for the user. It's typically made for the state. So I see a question here, basically a handful of plants. Full plants many times. I do weigh whole plants. I also weigh the trim and dry weight of individual buds. So good job there. Yeah, if you're weighing the full plant, that is a good best practice in doing that. So Michelle asks, in hanging full plants to dry, how do we get wet weight? So we do recommend a device or a scale that has a fish hook on it. So you're able to hang the whole plant on the scale, and it will capture that data. So there's a fish hook on the scale. We're happy to get you that information on the scale that has that fish hook so you can weigh that full plant. Somebody asked, does every plant have to stay separate during the trimming and the bucking process into the bin? So you only have to keep plants separate when you're growing them, and after you weigh them individually and capture that individual weight for that individual barcode. Once you have that data, you don't have to separate plants anymore after the drying process. But it's important that when you first harvest, you are capturing that plant ID with that wet weight. I see a question, can you send us that example. I'm not sure which example you're referring to, but if you want to follow up, I will get you that information. Our team's on standby to help with that. So I see another question. After taking clones, how long does it take for the tags to get to me that I am compliant? So typically we've seen these tags go out through USPS. I would estimate at least 1 to 2 weeks to receive your tags. See another question with package tags. How has the state mandated testing worked in? Yes, so the state does mandate testing. So this is going to be specific to your state. Here, the package tag is assigned to that inventory. It's then taken to a testing facility, and then it can go to the next phase of the supply chain. But typically, the package tag is assigned before it goes to the testing facility. In many cases, you only have to send off a small sample batch to the testing facility, and then that whole batch will be subject for sale after it's approved by that testing facility. See another question here. I can weigh full plants for some and just buds for others. How does Metrc differentiate that? Oh, so typically you want to weigh the full plant first, and then later down the line, after your plants have dried and you're ready to package, you weigh the buds and the dry weight. So that's the best way I can answer that question. So just wanted to provide some time for questions, but ultimately you can get in touch with us. You have multiple ways of getting in touch with us. For additional questions and resources, you can email support@grolens.com. This goes to the entire team, and we will make it a point to get back with you in 24 to 48 hours. This is my email personally. I will do my best to get back to you, but I would recommend emailing the team for a faster turnaround time. You also can call us directly and hit 1. That'll take you to our sales and support team. And you also can go on our site and request a demo. You will get a follow-up in 24 hours or the same day. So go to grolens.com, request-demo, and you will be able to get a specialist on the line to answer any further questions or to help you with the next phases of the process. So that's all I got for today, guys. I really appreciate you guys hopping on. I'm sorry if I didn't get to your question. We will be available if you want to send us an email, give us a call, or request a demo through our website. Thank you and have an awesome rest of the week. And again, we will be on standby for your additional questions.